The water exploded in a blinding flash of silver light as Karen's scream pierced the night air. What she thought was just another entitled neighbor's pool party was about to become humanity's first contact, and she was floating directly in the landing zone. The massive craft descended through the chlorinated chaos, its alien occupants completely unaware that they'd just interrupted the most notorious woman in suburbia. But Karen had no idea that her complaints about property lines and noise violations were about to become the least of anyone's problems. Some neighbors called the HOA, others called the police. But when Karen meets beings from another world, she's about to discover that the universe has its own way of handling difficult people. The pool lights cast dancing reflections across the backyard as Marcus Chen stood at his kitchen window, watching Karen Whitman's pale figure cut through the water with the entitlement of someone who'd never been told no. At 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, his neighbor was doing laps in his pool again. "This has to stop," Marcus muttered, gripping his coffee mug so tightly his knuckles went white. 3 months of this. 3 months since Karen had decided that the property line dispute gave her swimming privileges. He grabbed his phone and speed-dialed his lawyer. "David, it's Marcus. She's in my pool again." "Marcus, it's almost midnight," David's groggy voice replied. "Call the police. I've called them 6 times. They say it's a civil matter because of the boundary dispute. Can't you get an emergency injunction or something?" A splash echoed from outside. Karen was now floating on her back, arms spread wide, like she owned the place, which, according to her lawsuit, she claimed she partially did. "Look, the surveyor comes tomorrow. Once we prove the pool is entirely on your property, we can file for trespassing. Just try not to engage with her." Too late. Marcus was already sliding open the patio door. "Karen," his voice carried across the perfectly manicured lawn. "Get out of my pool." She didn't even turn her head. "It's not your pool, Marcus. Check the property lines." "The hell it isn't." Marcus strode toward the pool's edge, his bare feet slapping against the cool deck tiles. "That surveyor report from 1987 is garbage, and you know it." Karen finally turned, treading water with the lazy confidence of someone who'd never lost. A battle with a homeowners association. At 52, she'd weaponized her blonde bob and pearl earrings into tools of suburban terror. 2 divorces, 3 restraining orders from various neighbors, and a reputation that extended 5 HOA jurisdictions in every direction. The county records show that you're a psychopath who's made a career out of suing your neighbors. Marcus's voice rose, despite his better judgment. First the Johnsons over their fence, then the Martinezes about their dog. Now me, over property lines that have been established for 30 years. Karen's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "Established? Incorrectly. My property extends to the oak tree, which means half this pool is mine. I have every right to use it. Over my dead body? That can be arranged." The words hung in the air like a threat, and Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. Karen wasn't just entitled, she was dangerous. He'd heard the stories. The Johnson family had moved to Oregon after their legal bills hit 6 figures. The Martinezes lost their house. "I'm calling the police again," Marcus said, pulling out his phone. "Go ahead. Officer Patterson already knows about our dispute. He'll tell you the same thing he told you last week's civil matter. Work it out yourselves." Karen began swimming again, her strokes deliberately slow and provocative. "Face it, Marcus, you're going to lose. Just like all the others." Marcus's finger hovered over the emergency number. She was right about Patterson. The cops were useless in property disputes, especially ones involving Karen Whitman. She'd turned litigation into an art form, and she always won because she had more money and more time than anyone else. But not tonight. Tonight felt different. "You know what your problem is, Karen." Marcus walked along the pool's edge, matching her pace. "You think you can just take whatever you want? You think because you've got lawyers and money and time to burn, you can destroy people's lives." "I don't destroy lives," Karen said, flipping onto her back again. "I protect my property rights. If people can't handle that, they shouldn't have bought houses next to me. The Johnsons lived here for 15 years before you moved in, and they should have maintained their fence properly. Their fence was fine. You just wanted their garden." Karen's strokes grew more aggressive. "That garden encroached on my property by 8 inches. 8 inches of prime soil that I paid for when I bought this house. You made them tear out rose bushes that had been there since before you were born. Property lines are property lines, Marcus. Sentiment doesn't change the law." Marcus stared at her floating figure, illuminated by the pool lights, and felt a rage so pure it scared him. This wasn't about property lines or pools or gardens. This was about power. Karen had discovered that she could use the legal system like a weapon, and she'd been cutting a swath through the neighborhood ever since. "What happened to you?" he asked quietly. "What made you like this?" For just a moment, Karen's floating stopped. Her face went very still. "Like what? Empty? Hollow? So goddamn mean that you'd rather destroy everything around you than just ... exist peacefully." "I'm not mean," Karen said, her voice carrying a dangerous edge. "I'm thorough. I'm prepared. And I always win. Not this time." The words came out harder than Marcus intended, and he saw something flicker across Karen's face. Not fear, she was beyond that, but calculation. She was already planning her next move. Probably another lawsuit, maybe harassment charges. But before either of them could speak again, the night sky exploded with light. It started as a distant gleam like a helicopter searchlight, but it grew brighter and brighter until the entire backyard was bathed in silver radiance. Marcus looked up, shielding his eyes, and saw something impossible descending through the darkness. The craft was enormous, easily 50 feet across, and completely silent. Its hull gleamed like liquid mercury, shifting and flowing as it moved. Strange symbols pulsed along its edges, and beneath it, the air itself seemed to ripple with energy. "What the hell?" Marcus stumbled backward, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. In the pool, Karen had gone perfectly still. She floated motionless, staring up at the descending vessel with an expression Marcus had never seen on her face before. Pure, undiluted terror. The craft settled lower, its landing trajectory aimed directly at the center of the pool. The water began to churn and bubble as waves of energy washed over it. Marcus felt his hair standing on end, tasted copper in his mouth. "Get out!" he shouted to Karen. "Get out of the water!" But she couldn't move. She was frozen, staring up at the impossible sight above her. As the alien vessel prepared to make contact with Earth in Marcus Chen's backyard swimming pool, with Karen Whitman floating directly beneath it, the last thing Marcus heard before the water exploded in blinding light was Karen's scream. High and sharp, and filled with the first genuine emotion he'd ever heard from her: absolute, primal fear. The light was so intense that Marcus's vision went completely white. He stumbled backward, arms flailing, until he hit the patio furniture. The metal chair legs screeched against the concrete as he fell, landing hard on his shoulder. The sound of displaced water was deafening, thousands of gallons, surging outward as something massive settled into his pool. When his vision cleared, Marcus found himself staring at the impossible. The craft had landed with surgical precision, its curved bottom fitting perfectly into the pool's deep end. Water cascaded over the sides in torrents, flooding his lawn and rushing toward the house. Steam rose from where the alien hull met chlorinated water, and the air shimmered with residual energy that made his teeth ache. Karen was gone. Marcus scrambled to his feet, panic overriding his hatred. Whatever she was still human. The pool lights flickered wildly, casting dancing shadows across the craft's surface. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, organic curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal, covered in symbols that pulsed with soft blue light. No windows, no obvious doors, nothing that suggested how to communicate with whatever was inside. A wet cough echoed from behind the craft. Marcus ran around the pool's edge, slipping on the soaked deck tiles. He found Karen pressed against the far wall, water streaming from her hair and nightgown. She was alive, but barely. Her face was gray with shock, and she was shaking so violently her teeth chattered. I was under ... double quotes, she gasped, staring at the craft. "It came down right on top of me. I thought I was going to drown. Are you hurt?" Marcus surprised himself by actually caring about the answer. "I don't ... I can't." Karen tried to stand, but her legs gave out. She slumped against the pool wall, looking smaller and more fragile than Marcus had ever seen her. "What is that thing?" Before Marcus could answer, the craft began to change. The smooth hull rippled like water, and a section near the bottom started to expand outward. It didn't open like a door, it simply became permeable, revealing a dark, interior that seemed to absorb light. "We need to get inside," Marcus said, helping Karen to her feet. "Call the police, the military, somebody." "My phone was in my pool bag," Karen whispered. "It's at the bottom of your pool." Marcus patted his pockets frantically. His phone was still in the kitchen. He started toward the house, but Karen grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "Don't leave me," she said, and for the first time in 3 months, there was no calculation in her voice, just raw human fear. "Please." Something moved inside the craft. It was hard to make out details through the strange light-bending opening, but Marcus could see shapes shifting in the darkness. Tall, elongated forms that moved with fluid grace. As his eyes adjusted, he began to distinguish features. Elongated limbs, large heads, skin that seemed to shift between pale gray and silver. 3 of them emerged from the craft, moving through the opening like it was made of water rather than solid matter. They were even more alien, up close 7 feet tall, with large black eyes that reflected the pool lights like obsidian mirrors. Their skin had a translucent quality, and Marcus could see what might have been veins or circuitry pulsing beneath the surface. The beings paused at the edge of their craft, seemingly confused by the water and the 2 humans cowering nearby. One of them, the tallest, tilted its head and made a sound like wind chimes mixed with static electricity. "Oh God," Karen whispered. "Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God." The tall alien stepped into the water, and Marcus noticed it didn't sink. It walked across the surface like it was solid ground, leaving ripples of silver light in its wake. The other 2 followed, their movements perfectly synchronized. They approached slowly, and Marcus realized they were studying him and Karen with the same confusion he felt looking at them. One of them pointed a long, articulated finger at Karen, then at the pool, then back at Karen. It made the wind chime sound again, but this time there was a questioning tone to it. "I think, ... double quotes. Marcus swallowed hard. "I think they want to know why you were in the water. How could you possibly know that? Body language is pretty universal." The tallest alien stepped closer, and Marcus caught a scent like ozone and copper. When it spoke if, that's what the sound was. He felt the words in his bones, rather than hearing them with his ears. "Query, water vessel purpose, human immersion intention." The words formed in Marcus's mind without passing through his ears, and he nearly fell over from the shock of it. Telepathy. They were telepathic. "Did you hear that?" he whispered to Karen. She nodded, her face gone even paler. "It's in my head." "How is it in my head?" The alien tried again, its mental voice carrying notes of patience and mild confusion. "Clarification required. Human immersion in landing zone. Intentional obstruction query." Marcus took a shaky breath and tried to think his response clearly. She was swimming. This is a swimming pool for recreation. The 3 aliens exchanged glances, or at least, their heads turned toward each other in what seemed like consultation. The tall one's mental voice carried what might have been amusement. Recreation involving full-body liquid immersion. Curious practice. Karen found her voice, though it came out as a croak. "Who, ... what are you?" The alien turned its attention to her, and Marcus felt a wave of analytical energy wash over both of them. It was like being scanned by something far more advanced than any medical equipment. Designation: Research Expedition, Tertiary Fleet. Origin: Kepler 438b system. Purpose: Atmospheric water analysis and potential resource assessment. "They're here for our water," Marcus translated, though he wasn't sure why he was suddenly playing interpreter. Correction: Analysis only. No extraction planned. Unexpected obstacle encountered during standard sampling procedure. The alien gestured toward Karen with what might have been the galactic equivalent of mild irritation. Human presence in designated sample zone created extraction complications. Standard protocols suggest immediate area evacuation prior to contact. Karen was staring at the being with growing indignation, and Marcus felt a familiar chill of dread. He'd seen that look before. Before, she'd sued 3 different families into bankruptcy. "Excuse me," Karen said, straightening up, despite her soaked nightgown and chattering teeth. "This is private property. You can't just land here without permission." The aliens went very still. The tall one's head tilted further than should have been anatomically possible. "Property concept clarification required. This land belongs to us," Karen continued, her voice gaining strength as her lawyer instincts kicked in. "You're trespassing. I don't care what planet you're from, there are laws. Marcus grabbed her arm. Karen, don't. But she shook him off, stepping closer to the beings. Furthermore, you've damaged private property. That pool cost $40,000 to install, and you've completely disrupted the filtration system. I'm going to need to see some identification and proof of insurance. The aliens exchanged what Marcus was beginning to recognize as their version of confused glances. The tall one's mental voice carried notes of bewilderment, insurance query incomprehensible, legal framework unknown, planetary property division, concepts unclear. It's very simple, Karen said, and Marcus watched in horror as she slipped into full litigation mode. This is Earth. We have property rights here. You've landed on my neighbor's property without permission and caused significant damage. Under Earth law, you're liable for damages. Earth law query, authoritative source for planetary legal framework. Karen pulled herself up to her full height, 5 feet 4 inches of suburban fury. I am? I've been practicing property law for 15 years, and I can guarantee you that what you've done here constitutes criminal trespassing, destruction of private property, and probably several environmental violations. Marcus felt the alien's collective mental state shift from confusion to something that might have been alarm. The tall one's thoughts carried urgent undertones. Legal threat assessment required. Planetary authority consultation necessary. That's right, Karen said triumphantly. You need to consult with authorities. Specifically, you need to contact my lawyer and arrange for immediate compensation for damages, or I'll be forced to file suit against you and your ... fleet. The alien stepped back, and Marcus caught a fragment of rapid mental communication. Between the three beings, it was too fast and complex for him to follow, but the emotional content was clear. They were genuinely concerned about Karen's legal threats. And that's when Marcus realized something that filled him with a terror far greater than first contact with an alien species. Karen had just threatened to sue beings from another planet, and they were taking her seriously. The three aliens huddled together in what Marcus could only describe as an interstellar legal consultation. Their mental voices created a rapid-fire exchange of concepts too complex for him to follow, but the emotional undertones were crystal clear: panic, confusion, and what might have been the galactic equivalent of, oh shit, we need a lawyer. Karen, meanwhile, had found her element. Soaking wet and facing beings from another star system, she was more confident than Marcus had ever seen her. She'd pulled out her phone, apparently it had survived the alien landing, and was taking pictures of the craft. Documentation is crucial in any property damage case, she explained to Marcus, as if this were a perfectly normal Tuesday night. I need photos of the vessel, the water displacement, and any structural damage to the pool infrastructure. Karen, Marcus hissed, these are aliens, from space. This isn't a neighbor's tree falling on your fence. Property law is property. Law, Karen replied, snapping photos from multiple angles. Damage is damage. The fact that they're from another planet doesn't exempt them from Earth's legal system. The tall alien who Marcus had started thinking of as their leader separated from the group and approached them. Its mental voice carried formal, almost ceremonial tones. Designation: Primary Research Coordinator Zephi. Request: clarification of local legal framework parameters. Finally, Karen said, someone who understands proper procedure. She extended her hand in what Marcus realized was probably humanity's first formal business handshake with an extraterrestrial. Karen Whitman, attorney at law, Whitman and Associates Legal Services. The alien stared at her extended hand for a long moment, then reached out with one elongated finger and touched her palm. The contact sent a visible shiver through both beings. Query: attorney designation indicates legal system authority. That's correct, Karen said, pulling out her business card. I'm licensed to practice law in the state of California, and I specialize in property disputes, personal injury, and civil litigation. Zephi accepted the card with something approaching reverence, studying it with those large black eyes. Remarkable, portable legal credentials. Highly efficient system. Now, Karen continued, let's discuss the matter at hand. You've landed your vehicle on private property without permission, caused significant water damage, and disrupted the peaceful enjoyment of the premises. Under California Civil Code Section 1714, You're liable for all damages caused by your negligent actions. Marcus watched in fascination as the alien's skin shifted from pale gray to a deeper silver color. What he was beginning to recognize as a stress response, negligence query, actions performed under standard research protocols. No intent to cause harm or property disruption. Intent is irrelevant, Karen said briskly. Strict liability applies in cases involving ultra-hazardous activities. I'd say landing a spacecraft definitely qualifies as ultra-hazardous. The other two aliens moved closer, their mental voices joining the conversation. Ultra-hazardous designation concerning suggest immediate legal counsel consultation. Planetary legal system complexity exceeds mission parameters. Recommend contact with Fleet Juridical Division. Fleet Juridical Division, Marcus asked, his voice cracking slightly. Zephyr's attention turned to him. Affirmative. All research expeditions maintain legal compliance specialists for first contact scenarios. However, local legal framework integration was not anticipated at this complexity level. Karen's eyes lit up with predatory interest. You have space lawyers, juridical specialists. Yes. However, they operate under Galactic Confederation legal protocols. Local planetary law integration requires specialized expertise, which I can provide, Karen said smoothly. For a reasonable consultation fee, of course. Marcus felt reality tilting sideways. Karen, you can't charge aliens for legal advice. Why not? They need representation, and I'm qualified to provide it. This could be the biggest case in legal history. Zephyr's mental voice carried urgent undertones. Consultation fee requirement acceptable. Immediate legal guidance required to prevent protocol violations. Excellent, Karen said, her business instincts kicking into overdrive. My standard consultation rate is $400 per hour. But given the unprecedented nature of this case, I'll need to charge a premium. Let's say $1,000 per hour, plus expenses. Currency conversion protocols unknown. Alternative compensation arrangements possible. We can discuss that, Karen said. But first, I need to understand your legal exposure. How many of your people are involved in this operation? Current research expedition, 47 personnel. Tertiary fleet complement, 12,431 individuals. Marcus sat down heavily on a pool chair. You're talking about representing over 12,000 aliens? Class action suit, Karen breathed, her eyes wide with avarice. This could be the largest class action in history. Class action query. Multiple individual representation under single legal framework. Exactly, Karen said, much more efficient than individual cases. Now, I need to know, have any of your people landed on other private properties? Any other unauthorized research activities? The three aliens exchanged rapid mental communications, and Marcus caught fragments of panic from their collective thoughts. 17 unauthorized landings confirmed in past lunar cycle. Research sites include municipal water reservoirs, private swimming pools, ornamental ponds, recreational lakes. Potential legal exposure, significant, 17. Karen's voice rose with excitement. 17 separate incidents of trespassing and property damage. We're talking about millions in potential damages. Marcus stood up abruptly. Karen, stop. This is insane. These beings are here for scientific research, not to hurt anyone. Irrelevant, Karen said, waving him off. Damage is damage. The law doesn't care about intentions. But Zephy was studying Marcus with new interest. Individual exhibits, concern. For research, mission parameters. Unusual response pattern. I'm not unusual, Marcus said. I'm normal. She's the one who's unusual. She sues everyone. Everyone query. Litigation frequency data requested. Don't answer that, Karen warned Marcus. It's not relevant to the current case. But Marcus was fed up. 3 months of harassment, and now Karen was trying to monetize first contact with alien life. She sued half the neighborhood into bankruptcy. The Johnsons, the Martinezes, the Hendersons, anyone who gets in her way. Zephy's skin color shifted to a deep bronze, and its mental voice carried new tones of analysis. Pattern recognition, individual exhibits, aggressive litigation behavior, multiple targets, systematic approach. I protect my rights, Karen said, defensively, and the rights of my clients query. Other individuals represented in similar property disputes. "That's confidential," Karen said quickly. But Marcus was beyond caring about Karen's professional ethics. She doesn't have other clients. She just sues people for sport. It's like a hobby for her. The alien's mental voice grew cold. Clarification: litigation activities performed for entertainment rather than legitimate legal grievances. It's not entertainment, Karen protested. It's principle. Property rights are fundamental to fundamental query, core necessity, or recreational activity. Marcus saw something shift in the alien's posture, and he realized that Zephi was beginning to understand exactly what kind of person Karen was. The being's mental voice carried undertones of something that might have been discussed. Analysis complete. Individual exhibits parasitic legal behavior, exploitation of legal system for personal benefit rather than justice. "Now wait just a minute," Karen began, but Zephi cut her off with a mental communication so powerful it made both humans stagger. Consultation terminated. Legal representation declined. "You can't just decline representation," Karen said, her voice rising to a familiar shriek. "I'm offering you professional legal services, professional query. Behavior patterns indicate predatory rather than protective legal practice." The alien turned to Marcus, and its mental voice carried apologetic tones. Apology required. Initial assessment of local legal authority was incorrect. Individual Karen Whitman represents corrupted legal system exploitation rather than legitimate juridical framework. Marcus felt a wild laugh bubbling up in his chest. "You figured her out." "Affirmative. Pattern recognition indicates individual operates as legal system parasite. Representation would be ... counterproductive." Karen's face went red with fury. "You can't just dismiss me like that. I'm a licensed attorney. I have standing in this matter." Standing query: legal authority based on property ownership. "That's right," Karen said triumphantly. "This pool is partially on my property, which means negative," Zephi interrupted, and its mental voice carried absolute certainty. Advanced scanning during landing sequence confirms pool structure entirely within property boundaries of individual Marcus Chen. Individual Karen Whitman possesses no legitimate legal standing. The silence that followed was deafening. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish, and Marcus felt the universe realign itself around one simple, impossible fact. The aliens had just solved his property dispute with better accuracy than any human surveyor ever could. And Karen's entire legal case had just been demolished by beings from another planet. The color drained from Karen's face as the implications hit her. 30 years of carefully constructed legal victories, millions in settlements, an entire career built on fraudulent property claims, all undone by alien technology in a single scan? "That's impossible," she whispered. The 1987 survey clearly shows survey data from 1987 contains measurement errors of 0.7 meters, Zephi interrupted, its mental voice carrying the flat certainty of advanced technology. "Current property. Boundaries verified through quantum-level geological analysis. Individual Karen Whitman possesses zero legitimate claim to pool structure or surrounding area." Marcus felt 20 years of legal stress evaporate in an instant. "You hear that, Karen? Zero legitimate claim." But instead of backing down, face twisted with the desperate fury of a predator whose prey had just grown fangs. "I don't care what your fancy scanners say. Human courts recognize human surveys, not alien technology. No judge on Earth would accept evidence from an extraterrestrial source." The three aliens exchanged rapid mental communications, and Marcus caught fragments of their growing alarm. Individual exhibits reality denial in face of conclusive evidence. Psychological evaluation suggests acute narcissistic pathology. Recommend immediate containment protocols. "Containment?" Marcus asked, not sure he liked where this was heading. Zephi's attention remained fixed on Karen, who was now pacing around the pool's edge like a caged animal. "Individual demonstrates aggressive resistance to factual correction. Behavior pattern indicates potential threat to research mission security." "I'm not a threat," Karen snarled. "I'm a concerned citizen protecting my property rights. And if you think you can just land here and overturn decades of established legal precedent, You're about to learn how the American legal system really works." She pulled out her phone and started dialing with vicious satisfaction. "Karen, don't Marcus," warned, but she was already speaking into the phone. "David, it's Karen. I don't care what time it is. I need you to file an emergency injunction against a group of extraterrestrial beings who have landed on disputed property in my neighborhood." "No, I am not drunk, ... "Yes," I said, "extraterrestrial beings. David, listen to me very carefully. This is the case that's going to make both of us rich." The aliens' collective mental state shifted to something approaching horror as they realized what Karen was doing. Emergency legal action initiated. Threat assessment, critical individual attempting to weaponize planetary legal system against research expedition. Fleet Juridical Division contact required immediately. "You can't sue us," Marcus said desperately. "They're here for peaceful research." "I can sue anyone I want," Karen replied, hanging up her phone. "And I'm going to sue them, their fleet, their planet, and whatever government sent them here. Unauthorized landing, property damage, emotional distress, loss of peaceful enjoyment of property. I'm going to own their entire civilization by the time I'm done." Zephi stepped forward, and for the first time since the aliens had landed, Marcus felt genuinely afraid. The being's mental voice carried undertones of something far more dangerous than confusion. Individual Karen Whitman, now classified as hostile entity, threat to galactic research protocols confirmed. Hostile entity. Karen laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You haven't seen hostile yet. By tomorrow morning, there will be news crews, federal agents, and lawyers crawling all over this place. I'm going to make sure this becomes the most expensive unauthorized landing in history." Acceptable outcome. Fleet security protocols activated. The alien raised one elongated hand, and Karen suddenly froze mid-sentence. Her eyes went wide with terror as she realized she couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but stand there like a statue. "What did you do to her?" Marcus demanded. "Temporary neural restraint. Individual poses threat to research mission security. Containment necessary. You can't just ... paralyze people. Temporary measure only. Alternative was permanent containment." The implications of that statement hit Marcus like a physical blow. "You mean you would have killed her?" Individual demonstrated clear intent to compromise research expedition through aggressive legal action. Threat assessment required decisive response. Marcus looked at Karen's frozen form, her face locked in an expression of rage and terror. For the first time in months, she was completely powerless, unable to sue or threaten or destroy anyone's life. Part of him felt a savage satisfaction at seeing her finally silenced. But she was still human, still his neighbor, no matter how terrible she was. "Look," Marcus said carefully, "I understand she's a problem, but you can't just neutralize people who threaten you. That's not how things work on Earth. Earth protocols unclear. Individual exhibits behavior patterns consistent with criminal pathology. Standard procedure requires isolation of hostile entities." "She's not criminal," Marcus said, though the words felt strange coming out of his mouth. "She's just ... Really? Really awful. But being awful isn't illegal." Clarification. Legal system permits parasitic behavior. Unfortunately, yes. As long as she follows proper procedures, she can sue whoever she wants, whenever she wants. The system is designed to be accessible, which means people like Karen can abuse it. Zephi's mental voice carried notes of profound confusion. Legal. System permits exploitation of legal system itself. "It's complicated," Marcus said weakly. The alien stared at him for a long moment, then turned its attention back to Karen's frozen form. Individual Karen Whitman represents fundamental flaw in planetary legal framework. Correction required. What kind of correction? But before Zephi could answer, Karen's phone started ringing. The caller ID showed David Chen, attorney her lawyer, calling back. "Communication device requires response," the alien observed. "Individual unable to provide response due to neural restraint. Maybe that's for the best," Marcus said. But Zephi was studying the phone with intense interest. Legal professional attempting contact, information gathering opportunity. The alien gestured, and Karen's phone floated through the air into its elongated hand. With a careful touch, it answered the call. "Karen," came David's voice through the speaker. "Karen, are you there? I've been thinking about what you said, and I have to ask, are you absolutely certain about these extraterrestrial beings? Zephyr's mental voice somehow projected through the phone's speaker, though it sounded perfectly human. David, this is Karen? Yes, I'm absolutely certain. They're here. They've landed in my neighbor's pool, and they've caused significant property damage. Marcus stared in shock. The alien was perfectly mimicking Karen's voice and speech patterns. Jesus Christ, Karen, if this is real, do you have any idea what this means? It means the biggest payday of our careers, Zephyr's Karen replied. I want you to contact every media outlet in the state. CNN, Fox News, TMZ, everyone. I want this place swarming with reporters by dawn. Are you sure that's wise? If there really are aliens there, shouldn't we contact the government first? The government will try to cover it up. Media attention is our insurance policy. And David, start drafting lawsuits against NASA, the Air Force, and the Department of Defense. If aliens are landing on American soil, someone in the government knew about it. This is the biggest cover-up in history, and we're going to blow it wide open. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. The alien was using Karen's own lawyer to create exactly the kind of media circus that would turn First Contact into a legal nightmare. I'll get right on it, David said, his voice filled with greedy excitement. This is going to be incredible, Karen. We're going to be famous. Rich and famous, Zephyr corrected. I'll call you back in an hour with more details. The alien ended the call and turned to Marcus, its mental voice carrying notes of grim satisfaction. Legal system exploitation protocols now understood. Individual Karen Whitman's methods will be utilized to neutralize threat she represents. What do you mean? Marcus asked, though he was afraid he already knew. If planetary legal framework permits parasitic behavior, then parasitic behavior will be employed. Individual Karen Whitman will be eliminated using her own methodologies. Marcus looked at Karen's frozen form, then at the alien holding her phone, and realized with growing horror that Zephyr was about to destroy Karen's life using her own weapons. The predator had just become the prey, and the hunt was about to begin.